Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Laura let the towel fall onto the bed and walked to the mirror naked. She calmly inspected her neck, lips, and hair that was still a bit damp. She picked up the perfume she saved for specific moments and gave 2 sprays, then stepped back and tested the scent with a small turn of her head. Satisfied, she opened the dresser drawer and chose red lingerie Joel had never seen. While she slipped it on, she glanced at the phone beside the hairbrush. A message was pinned on the screen, room 214. "I'm already here." She replied with a small emoji, deleted the chat history, turned off notifications, and dropped the phone into the tiny purse she'd used that evening. In the kitchen, Joel was stirring the dinner sauce. He turned, smiled, and asked if she was sure that company event would run so late. She smiled back naturally and said she might be back after midnight, depending on the new manager's presentation. Joel told her to be careful and wished her luck. She thanked him with a kiss on the cheek and left with the ease of someone who felt everything was under control. In the car she put on an upbeat playlist and drove to the hotel where Brandon waited. She parked in the basement and took the service elevator, an agreement between them to avoid curious eyes. Brandon opened the door with an eager smile, but Laura stepped in without a word, shoved him back, and kissed him hard. While kicking off her shoes, she told him to hurry with the shirt. This was the part of the night that thrilled her most, the rush of absolute power, being exactly where she wanted, with whom she wanted, at the time she chose. An hour later, still in the room, Laura checked her makeup in the bathroom mirror. She had the right products in her purse: special wipes for lipstick smudges, eye drops to hide any hint of fatigue, a neutral spray to mask the earlier perfume. With the precision of someone who had done the ritual dozens of times, she erased every trace. Brandon joked she took it too seriously, and she answered with a smile, "That's what keeps me free." Before leaving, she made sure she hadn't forgotten anything. She wiped her phone with a dry cloth to remove prints, grabbed her purse, adjusted her hair, and in the elevator turned the wife mode back on. Her face calm, eyes steady, posture of a busy woman returning from a productive night. She got in the car, cleared the interior scent with a fabric fresh spray, and drove with the radio off, rehearsing what she would tell Joel about the event, maybe technical issues, buffet delay, a keynote that ran long. Back home, Joel was asleep on the couch with the TV on. She turned it off, covered him with a blanket, and went to the bedroom. In the bathroom she washed her face, brushed her teeth, and stared at herself in the mirror for a few seconds. No guilt, no regret. It was already routine. It was already part of her. She lay down beside her husband and whispered, "Good night, love." Joel shifted slightly, half asleep, and held her hand. She let him. She closed her eyes with a faint smile. Another perfect day, she thought. And the game went on. The next morning, Laura woke before Joel. She showered quickly, put on her robe, and made coffee as if she'd come home exhausted but pleased with the night before. Joel walked into the kitchen and asked how it went. She gave a light smile and said the new manager was a bit scatterbrained, the presentation ran late, but the food was good. He listened, thanked her for the coffee, and asked if she wanted to have lunch out on Saturday. She said yes in a sweet voice that sounded present, though her mind was elsewhere. That same afternoon Laura left work early and messaged Brandon, "Meet me in the Northside Complex garage, level B." He answered with a heart and said he was on his way. Laura typed, "See you soon," deleted the thread, and put the phone away. In the elevator mirror she adjusted her hair, added a touch of gloss, and smiled at herself. This wasn't just a meeting with her lover, it was a break from the lifelong play she performed. With Brandon she could be anyone, even though that was a performance too. He was already waiting, arms folded, leaning against the car. He wore a denim shirt she'd picked out on their last outing. Laura walked up and, without fuss, got in the car. Time was short, so they wasted none on romantic frills. They went straight to their usual hotel, where the desk clerk no longer asked for names. They rode the elevator in silence, their fingers brushing. In the room she kicked off her shoes before the door even closed. Brandon tried to joke about something he'd seen online, but Laura cut him off with a kiss. She wanted intensity, not talk. Afterward, Brandon dozed for a few minutes with an arm over his eyes. Laura used the time to rummage through her purse, touch up her makeup, and wipe any marks from her neck. She scanned the room, checking if any paper was out of place, if the bed showed anything. She was meticulous. She tucked her underwear into an opaque bag, as always, and returned to the bathroom. She washed her face, sprayed neutral perfume, and stood silent for a moment staring at the mirror. In that reflection she saw more than pleasure. It felt like she was earning points in a game where she was the only player. Brandon was a pawn. Joel was the board. And she, the strategist. But without knowing, she was playing against someone far more patient. That part she hadn't discovered yet. On Friday Laura got home early. Joel wasn't back from the office. She went straight to the bedroom to check the carry-on she'd use for the weekend. Everything was as planned: light clothes, basic makeup, prepaid cards, and a discreet pair of earrings Brandon had given her weeks before. The conference in Tampa would be her perfect excuse for 2 full days with the lover. Over dinner she mentioned the trip calmly, said some session started early Saturday, so she'd leave that night. Joel nodded with his usual calm and wished her luck. She hugged him, kissed his neck lightly, and said she loved him. He answered with a quiet smile. On the highway, music low, Laura pressed the gas. Brandon was already at the booked hotel. She'd reach him before 10. When she arrived, she parked in back and used the service elevator. In the room she kicked off her shoes, dropped her purse on the chair, and hugged Brandon hard. She said she needed to forget the world for a while. They spent Saturday between the bed and quick walks downtown, always careful, always with codes. Laura kept her wedding band in her purse pocket. With him, the world seemed shaped just for her. Sunday morning, Brandon was still asleep when Laura took her phone into the bathroom. She called Joel, saying she'd just left breakfast and the closing talk would stream online, so she might be home early. He answered with the same steady tone as always. Laura hung up, stared at the phone for a few seconds, then went back to bed. That was how she kept control: constant motion, well-told lies, everything neat on the outside, delicious chaos inside. But that afternoon, when she got home and set the suitcase on the living room floor, she found Joel folding laundry on the couch. She hugged him from behind and asked if he'd missed her. Joel said yes, but his voice was softer than usual. Then he looked her in the eyes, smiled, and asked if she wanted to go out for dinner. Laura accepted, already planning what she could wear. While he dropped clothes in the basket, she mentioned one of the talks had been cancelled for technical issues. Joel paused half a second, as if to respond, but just smiled again. He said he was glad she was back safe. At the restaurant she talked more than normal. She described the event, mentioned people who didn't exist, praised the city, and said maybe they could travel together soon. Joel listened attentively. Then he ordered a dessert she liked and complimented her perfume. Laura shifted in her chair and teased that he seemed more observant than usual. He said maybe he was. When they got home, Joel stayed on the couch, saying he needed to finish a report, and she went upstairs. While removing her makeup, Laura grabbed her phone and opened the photo gallery. She erased every shot she'd taken with Brandon over the weekend, cleared the trash, and restarted the device. In the mirror she tried out expressions: smile, neutral, sweeter gaze. She repeated to herself that she was doing fine, that Joel was still clueless. What she didn't see was that on the same couch where he typed up report, a second screen displayed every transaction on the prepaid card she'd used. The timestamps matched the check-ins. And Joel, silent, just watched. Typing, saving, cross-checking. As always, methodical. As always, patient. The morning after the weekend, Laura woke before the alarm. Joel was already up, warmth lingered on his side of the bed. She stretched, checked her phone, and saw Brandon had texted the night before, "Thinking of you." She typed a brief reply, erased it, and got ready. On the way to the kitchen she passed Joel's office and noticed the lights off. The shower ran upstairs. She opened the fridge, poured juice, and drank calmly. When she set the glass in the sink she heard footsteps on the stairs. Joel appeared, tie in hand, dressed for another ordinary day. He placed a black folder on the table and, in the same even voice, said only, "When you get a minute today, sign this for me." Laura frowned, curious, asking if it was bank stuff. Joel said she'd see. He kissed her quickly on the forehead and grabbed the car keys. Before leaving, he turned and, as always, said, "Take care." The door closed. Laura stood there, staring at the folder. She picked it up, carried it to the table, sat down, took a deep breath, and opened it. The first page had a clear heading, "Petition for Divorce." Her eyes widened and she pulled out the next sheets. Everything was filled in, full names, dates, addresses, his signature. Behind the form came the attachments: reservations under a fake ID she used with Brandon, bank statements with timestamps matching trips, screenshots of messages she thought were gone, photos, sharp images of Laura entering and leaving hotels, hand in hand with the lover, laughing, kissing, hugging. All arranged with precision. She covered her face with her hands. Instinctively she ran to the living room, grabbed her purse, and checked her phone. The gallery was clean, the history too. Everything already deleted. So how did he get it? She rushed to the laptop, opened email, checked backups. Nothing obvious. All clean. She tried calling Joel, but it rang to voicemail. She went back to the table, flipped through the documents again. The last page held a handwritten line in firm script, "You're very good at hiding. I'm better at waiting." Laura's breathing grew heavy. She paced in circles, trying to figure out when he'd found out, how he'd gathered so much. She spent the whole day uneasy. She sent short messages to Joel saying they needed to talk, that it was a mistake, that she could explain. No answer. She called Brandon, told him what was happening, asked to meet. He said it was better if they stayed apart for a while. She yelled, hung up, and threw the phone on the couch. That afternoon she cooked dinner alone, without appetite, and set his plate on the table like every night. When Joel came home around 8, she ran to him, asking if he wanted to talk. He said there was no rush, the papers were already in motion. She grabbed his arm, pleading for a chance to explain. Joel looked at her for a moment and, instead of anger or sadness, simply said, "You never noticed, Laura. I was here the whole time." He went upstairs without another word. She stayed in the middle of the room holding a plate of cold food, unsure when everything had flipped. For the first time, control slipped from her hands. That night Laura sat on the couch for a while, the TV on mute. The folder lay open on the table, exposing what she'd hidden. The scent of the meal she'd heated still hung in the air, making it feel even tighter. Every minute she expected his footsteps on the stairs. She wanted him to say something, even shout. But he stayed upstairs. She rose, climbed quietly, and stopped at the half-open door. Joel sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling his phone. She walked in without asking, arms crossed, and asked if he wanted to talk. He said it wasn't the moment. She insisted, voice shaking, begging to explain. Joel set the phone on the nightstand, stood calmly, and met her eyes. "You had every chance to tell me. Every one. You chose the game. Now live with the end." Laura tried to move closer, said he was the only one who mattered, that it had all been a mistake. He stepped away, opened the closet, grabbed a change of clothes, and said he'd sleep in the guest room. Then he left, closing the door behind him. She stood in the middle of the room, hands trembling, blood cold. She sat on the bed, stared at the mirror for a few seconds, then lowered her head. It felt like a slow-motion nightmare. But there was no shouting, no meltdown. Something worse, absence. His indifference was like a verdict. It wasn't contempt, it was closure. And when she lay on that bed, the pillow still carrying his scent, she understood something no affair had taught her: losing someone in silence hurts more than any confrontation. Joel spent the following weeks as he always had, simply. He kept going to work, ate at the same corner diner, replied to emails patiently, and went home early. Home now was different, a small, functional, quiet apartment. His co-workers noticed nothing. Joel told no one what had happened, no hints, no venting. It was as if he'd just rearranged life, carrying no grudge, spreading no pain. He wasn't the type of man who turned heads. He had no loud charisma and never held court. Joel was the man who listened more than he spoke, who kept promises, who showed up when no one expected and helped without fuss. He was never extraordinary to the world. But he was a dignified man. That made all the difference. When he suspected, he didn't shout. He watched. When he knew, he didn't destroy. He acted. He organized every proof, mapped his own exit, and at the right moment turned the key. For him, Laura wasn't a mistake to avenge. She was simply a chapter that needed to end. And it ended, no spectacle, no dramatic farewell. Just another page turned in the journey of life. Meanwhile, Laura drowned in what she thought she controlled. She tried staying with Brandon, but the thrill of secret meetings was gone. Without risk, without the game, only emptiness remained. Brandon pulled away. Days grew heavy, nights dragged. The mirror showed a worn-out woman. Sometimes she held her phone for hours, wanting to text Joel. But what could she say? That she regretted it? That she felt ashamed? He already knew. Laura couldn't move on. The page was there, ready to turn, but a stone weighed it down. A huge stone made of everything she'd once dismissed and now wanted back: his patience, his respect, the calm gaze of someone who loves quietly. She tried pushing that stone every day. The harder she pushed, the heavier it felt: regret and shame, the only companions she had chosen and could no longer drop. And Joel? Joel kept going, steady steps, though discreet. Because a dignified man doesn't need to be extraordinary. Some simply move forward, and that alone makes them great. This was more than a story about betrayal. It was about choices, the power of silence, and the dignity of someone who would rather rebuild his life than seek revenge on the one who broke it. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.